You should be able to experiment in the marketplace, and you shouldn't be locked in. And while some companies will argue for easy end-to-end, the reality is the best value prop is the freedom that you can choose from in a rich community of third-party innovators. That's where the future lies. It's where it's always been.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Security VIP Podcast, the official podcast of the security industry and home of nothing but the truth. And for today's episode, we are once again sitting down with the top professional in the security industry. Now, this is a man who is not only well known in the industry, but is someone that speaks the absolute truth about what this industry is all about. Now, what's that truth, you may ask? Well, it's the power of open, of course. That's right. Milestone System sets the tone in the video management game because of their open platform community and XProtect system that is implemented worldwide. As a global leader in the space, it was only right to sit down with the VP of Americas, Mr. Tim Palmquist, and have him on the Security VIP podcast. So with that being said, Tim, welcome to Security VIP, man. How are we doing today?
Doing great. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course, man. And it's my pleasure to have you on. It's like I said earlier with you, my father has known you for quite some time. You're very respected through my household as well as the industry. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time with us today. And maybe just kind of give us a quick background about yourself, Tim. You know, obviously I know you pretty well, but for those who do not and our listeners today, tell us a little background about yourself.
Sure. I've been in the industry for a while. I started at Milestone in January of 2007, but before that I worked in IT integration. And it was at a VAR Business 500 IT integrator in Kansas that I first got some exposure into the physical security industry. That's when I met a fellow named John Steen from Axis, and got to know a software company that was still in Denmark back then, named Milestone. And then I ran into another fellow at a trade show named Muli from ONSSI. So early relationships in the industry. One of the things I did at that IT integrator was build out a physical security practice. You know, we were looking for a new type of technology that we could build out to drive switches, switch sales, infrastructure, PoE, Ethernet switches from Cisco, compute and storage, as well as labor. And IP video looked really interesting. And that's when I first started to learn about the evolution of analog to IP. And once I looked into that a little bit further and saw that this company Milestone was expanding into the US, looked like a good opportunity. I thought there might be a little growth in the area of IP video, taking over analog. So I put my hat in the ring, and I've been at Milestone ever since.
It's been history ever since, man. I looked at your resume the other day and I was like, wow, Tim has been there for quite some time. And that's a good thing too, because typically in our industry, Tim, we see guys, maybe 2-3 years into a company or employer, then they always bounce. But with you, it shows longevity with Milestone, and it also shows a true testament about the company and what you guys specialize in. So maybe give us a background about the company. What's Milestone for those who are unfamiliar with the company?
Sure. Also looking back, I think I might have had more hair when I joined Milestone originally, but times changed, and Milestone's changed. So Milestone's been around since 1998, an early pioneer of video management software. And actually, the founders of Milestone looked across the bridge and saw these guys that were making print servers over in Lund had come up with a camera, and they thought maybe that camera would change things, and there should be some software to go with it. And so that was the origins of Milestone Systems. Actually, another company that had started doing something completely different than IP video, much like Axis, but evolved into this industry. And so being a manufacturer of video management software is one thing, but then it's what is the core of Milestone. What does Milestone believe? And from the very beginning, Milestone has taken the belief system that it takes a community of innovators to deliver rich innovation and technology to the marketplace. And so Milestone builds video management software, but believes very much in the open platform. And maybe it's because of the IT roots of our organization, where that seems quite natural to believe in best of breed coming together to solve dynamic problems for the end customer. But that's always been with us all along. And so from the very early days, Milestone Systems is the open platform company, believing in a community of partnerships to bring that technology to marketplace or to the end customers in the marketplace.
Love to hear that. And we're going to talk about the open platform community that Milestone has. And that's a couple good points that Tim just brought up because, a couple weeks ago, Tim, I had, Chuck O'Leary on this podcast. He talked about the open architecture system. I had Matt Barnett from Mercury Security talk about the open ecosystem. So we revolved this theme around the open community, which you guys definitely specialize in. So, as a global leader in the VMS space, talk about this XProtect system you guys have. I know you guys have different product lines of the VMS system. So maybe talk about this and maybe some key end users and highlights that you guys revolve around with the system.
Sure. So at Milestone, we try to build video management software that addresses the low mid-market up through the enterprise. And we don't attempt to compete in the residential space or the very low end of the market, but low mid is where we start. Sweet spot is in the mid market, and then there's a rich opportunity in the enterprise. And so we build products that have feature elements to address those different marketplaces, and then build in functionality with community partners around those products to meet the diverse needs of the market. Because what happens is end user needs evolve and change over time, and so it takes software that can change with those times, but also be complemented by the innovation of other companies. So XProtect fits in lots of different places. You'll see us playing in Fortune 50 companies, in Fortune 500, and then also in some mom and pop shops and the traditional mid-sized businesses that you find throughout the global marketplace. And that's been our intention from the beginning. Our software has evolved over time. We've played in different parts of the market, better and worse, depending on the evolution of the marketplace. But that's what you have to do. You have to keep changing to address where things fit, where the market's going. You have to lay down some legacy products along the way and shift. So we've shifted from older code bases, we've shifted from older products and transitioned to new products, new names, and they fit in different places in the marketplace.
It's funny, Tim. Well, I had my last episode on this podcast. I had Josh Anderson and John Underwood of Cherokee Nation, who's a big Milestone customer. And it was funny that John brought this up to me when I first met him over a year ago. He said, Taylor, out of the 10 properties we have throughout the tribe, we had probably 4 or 5 different VMS systems throughout the properties. And I was like, wow, really? He's like, yeah, it was just a cluster. It was a big mess. And then finally we found Milestone, and we finally consolidated all our properties to the Milestone XProtect system, and it made our life 10 times easier. And good points that Tim brought up. Again, going back to the open kind of stereotype, open mentality is, when you do that, guys, it's a lot easier to add customizations, feature sets, third-party applications inside Milestone's VMS system, which is very, very special. So, Tim, I'm a huge fan of the MIPS conference every year. I was obviously at the one here in Dallas. Saw you speak a couple of times. Always a great show that you guys put on. So huge fan. Obviously, COVID's kind of had a dramatic toll now on next year. Maybe I don't know if it's gonna still happen or not. So maybe you can fill us in on that. But maybe talk about y'all's theme, because it was the power of open. You expressed that multiple times, and going off what I just said, talk about that further and what that means for our partners and end users today.
Well, I appreciate the call out for MIPS, and I appreciate that you're a fan of that event. It's something that we've been building for many years. Actually, last year was the 15th anniversary of MIPS in the Americas region. And MIPS is really a place where people come together to see the future. That's the intention of that event. From the very beginnings in 2006, it gathered together a segment of the marketplace that was really interested to understand how analog was going to transition to IP and what that would look like and what the disruptions would be and how to navigate their business into the future. Many companies were building a practice around IP then. Analog was definitely the predominant technology at the time. MIPS has continued to deliver on that promise year after year of bringing together some provocative ideas, talking about disruption, and trying to peer out into the future, sometimes way out into the future, with the intention of preparing the audience for what we think will come, but also to be provoked ourselves, to understand where the marketplace is going together, all of us in conversation. So that's what MIPS is about. And on the 15th year, it only made sense to say, or to have a theme of the power of open. Back to the belief system that it takes a community of innovators to really deliver on the needs in the marketplace. And one thing you'll see about Milestone, we do not proclaim the message of end-to-end. We didn't proclaim it back when analog was giving way to IP. There were certainly great examples of end-to-end solutions back then, and you still hear this language today. But we don't believe in this lock-in mentality. So MIPS is an environment where you'll see all types of different conversations, different technology. You'll be able to experience what we think the future might look like. And when we look into the future in 2020 at MIPS, we were talking about cloud. We were talking about the transition from traditional client server to cloud and how that's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to manifest itself in a lot of different ways. We talked about paths to cloud. Arcules, as an example, a sister company in California, one of the paths to cloud. We also talked about XProtect on AWS as another path to cloud, and how moving forward we expect to be part of other paths to cloud. Because again, end user needs are diverse, their environments are unique, and not everybody follows the same path to future technology. And balancing client server, balancing on-prem and off-prem, all of these things will play out over a long period of time. And what our customers and our system integrators need is options, a variety of different ways to accomplish their needs and to maintain their investment over a long, useful life. And so that was very much an emphasis in MIPS this year. And next year, we'll take on a different topic, always looking forward. You are correct that we are scratching our head a little bit about MIPS it's scheduled to be the first week of March in Denver, Colorado. And looking forward, well, that looks a little problematic. And so we'll be coming with some clarity on what we think we should do in the future. But certainly large physical events are in question throughout all of 2021, I believe. And so we'll see how all that plays out for trade shows and MIPS and other events moving forward. But one thing that we have learned is we can do a lot of things online, and we'll certainly augment any physical event with an online presence moving forward.
That they can, and some exciting news. Hopefully we can still have a MIPS conference next year. If not, I'm sure Milestone will put together some phenomenal event that we'll all have to attend regardless. But some good points there, and kind of to wrap up what Tim just said there, guys, is, Milestone stays in their lane. I've said this countless times on this podcast series, but they are not trying to be the one-all, be-all, platform that does everything and anything. They rely on third-party applications. They rely on an open ecosystem when it comes to certain manufacturers staying in their swim lane, but can integrate with Milestone system. Same thing with here at AnyVision. The company I work for, we stay in our lane in the AI sector. Milestone stays in our lane in the VMS sector. You've got the access control players that stay in their lane. You've got the cloud providers such as Tim mentioned, Arcules, AWS, all certain manufacturers that interoperate with Milestone's XProtect system, but they uniquely stay in their lane, and they're kind of getting away from that proprietary system. Because just like Tim said, and just like John Underwood said last week on our episode together, is once you're locked into a proprietary system, it is very difficult to get you out of that system and kind of move forward to interoperate something else and something differently into your platform. So you want to make sure you're future proof, right? So that's what Milestone does at these MIPS conferences. If you have not attended one, I highly encourage you to even watch some of the videos they put out from previous MIPS conferences, but listen to what they're all about and listen to what they're doing, because if any partner out there, any manufacturer out there that actually vets and trusts these kind of manufacturers and what they're bringing to the table, it's Milestone, because they take the time and the passion to actually vet out these certain third-party applications to make it work in your environment for an end user. So, moving on to that, Tim, COVID-19, man, it's the elephant in the room, right? So we don't know what to expect. When is it going to end, et cetera. Businesses are reopening, businesses are closing. What's that path look like? We don't know. But what are some of the things that you guys have done at Milestone since COVID-19? Maybe some new products or even enhancements you guys have announced since then.
Yeah, good question and a big topic. So COVID-19 has certainly impacted our business and our industry as well as many others. And one of the takeaways from COVID-19 is in some areas of our economy and in our marketplace, we can see a negative impact, and in other areas, we can see a positive impact. It's created opportunities that balance. Not that there's a positive out of COVID, but there's a way to balance the market and who's winning and who's struggling. Certainly, back in March, we reforecasted our year, and we were a little concerned about how that would play out. And fortunately, we've been able to achieve better results than we thought maybe were possible in March. So it's been overall a pretty decent year in the Americas. But it presented new opportunities. All challenges do that. And so, on the one hand, we pivoted to online, like so many other companies. What can you do online? And we conducted a lot of online training. We already had a cadence of doing physical and online training, but we decided to launch a project called Project Loyalty, where we wanted to provide that training for free to get a lot of people into the classes and be a loyal partner back to our system integrators and our end customers, and hopefully earn some loyalty in return as well. We ended up training over 2,700 people during that time, where we reduced the price to free. That's just the certifications that came through. There were actually more people in the trainings. So it was a tremendous opportunity for people to get in classes and get brushed up on their skills. And we've also been conducting internally what we call Milestone Community Connect sessions, MCCs. These happen every week. It's an internal training back towards the Milestone people from third-party community partners. So like AnyVision, for example, where a manufacturer can bring their technology into Milestone and present for an hour and educate the sales and technical team. We have, every week over 100 people on the Milestone side attending these MCCs and learning about community solutions so they can better articulate those in the marketplace. And that's an important action because, as I mentioned earlier, COVID presents challenges, it presents opportunities. And so how can technology address the needs in the marketplace? And we've seen needs like, distance, an analytic to determine the distance between people, or the density of crowds or gatherings to create separation, social separation, the direction of traffic flows within offices to help assure that the redirection of people going one way versus two ways, they can achieve that. Of course, temperature was a big topic in all kinds of different ways, how to identify the temperature of people. And aggregating this data so that if you do have a problem, you can trace movements quickly and understand who came into contact with who. All of these types of things are needs that people are discussing in a back-to-work action that's going on now. And we get back to this notion of open and the freedom to choose. Also, we've seen lots of different manufacturers make claims on how they can address the needs of COVID-19 and the back-to-work scenario. And some of those claims have proven to be true, and some have proven not to be true. And what's nice about having the freedom to choose is you can experiment with technology, you can test it out and try it, but you're not locked in to a commitment around a single manufacturer to solve your problem, or for that single manufacturer's claims to be true. So having the freedom to choose, the freedom to experiment, the freedom to find the solutions that you need to address the dynamic needs in the market, there's no better example than what we've gone through this year with COVID-19 disruptions in our business.
Tim was very nice in his response about different technologies in the COVID-19 realm, where I have really no filter, and When it comes to thermal technology and certain technologies where a lot of manufacturers come out and they make these claims, I'm like, you're full of shit. You're just full of shit. And I'm not afraid to say that because this is my podcast series. I can say whatever I want. But Tim was very delicate around that question. And kind of the synopsis for what he said, everyone, was it's a holistic approach, right? And the good thing about Milestone is they actually vet a lot of these third-party applications before they actually certify them into their open ecosystem, their open community. So, Tim, going off from that, you mentioned fever detection. I have to ask this question because I asked all my manufacturers this. What are your thoughts on thermal and fever solutions? Because, man, here in Texas, when it's 103 degrees outside, everyone and their mom's got an elevated temperature. How are we combating for that? What are your thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, I think I certainly understand why there was a lot of efforts to solve this problem, but it's a problem that's very difficult to solve. And I think the credibility of the results is proven to be very, very challenging. And so for that reason, there may be environments where things like that can be helpful, but certainly a technology to take with a grain of salt right now, and be very careful how it's deployed and the promises that are made.
Love it. If anything, guys, it's just a layer. I've said it before. Thermal can be used as a layer, but not the sole solution to COVID-19. There's a lot of different technologies that we can implement to make it a better, safer, more secure tomorrow. So Tim did mention the Milestone Marketplace. That was my next question for him on this podcast series. And even when I attended MIPS, I attended one of those kind of private sessions about the marketplace, and it shows all the list of manufacturers that Milestone has vetted and essentially certified into their marketplace ecosystem. So if you're not familiar with that, guys, I highly encourage you guys to go check that out because it is a good platform to utilize when it comes to solving this new normal that we're all going to have to experience. So Tim, going off the marketplace, talk about, since COVID-19, I'm sure verticals have changed, right? So I'm sure some verticals that you normally specialize in were no longer there, or it's been on pause. Maybe let's talk about some new verticals that you guys are entering since COVID-19. What does that look like?
Yeah, so back to the marketplace comment. Also, I think when I referred to it earlier, I was talking about the broader market in general. But you're right, we do have a section of our website called Marketplace, and that is a landing place where people can go to do three things: explore, connect, and deploy. And we talk about technology, so that's what you'll find on Marketplace. So you can get an overview of a solution. You can understand how it works, whether you read about it or you catch a video, and you can learn how to install it. And what we do is we vet that stuff ourselves. So there's a verified by Milestone. It lines up the versions, it lines up the capabilities, and so our system integrators and end customers, they know what will work together. Because the notion of open makes a lot of sense, but there are some complexities in putting that all together. And so lowering the threshold for how to make all that work is what Marketplace is all about. It's intended to be a place where you can get knowledge, understand how those things go together, and how to successfully make them work on a day-to-day basis. There are technologies that you'll find there that address a multitude of different things. And Taylor, I don't remember your exact question here, but you were asking about which solutions are fitting well in the market for different verticals. Is that correct?
Correct.
One thing that we've seen for sure during COVID-19, the transition this year, is maybe retail business. That vertical is not a hot buyer in some ways, and yet there are some elements of retail that are still spending. And we realize also too in K through 12 that there's a competition for spend. A lot of laptop computers are being bought versus security solutions, and so there's a balancing act that's going on with the cost there. But if you're in the transportation business, there's a lot of needs that need to be fulfilled. If you're in the fulfillment business online, a lot of dynamic needs that need to be fulfilled. So one of the takeaways that we've really been pleasantly surprised by so far this year is just as some of our traditional business has waned a bit, there are new elements in our business that have prospered, and we see this in. If you just look at the NASDAQ, there are certain companies that are having banner years, and there are other companies that are having terrible years. And it's because of how you conduct your business and what's appealing with the backdrop of COVID. So we certainly see the same thing in the physical security space. I'll say this as well. The other pleasant surprise has been a lot of large businesses need to continue on doing what they always have to do and what they plan to do. And so we have seen purchases that have nothing to do with whether the business is succeeding or failing, but it's just part of the cadence of their security rollout and their plans that have been in place for, maybe a year before. And if you take commercial office buildings, for example, a lot of those are closed or people, are not in their offices. But if you look at the activities that are going on, they're taking the time to repave their parking lots, add new carpet, do whatever they need to do to dress up the place because they realize business will be back. And in a lot of examples in our marketplace, we see companies knowing business will come back. And so let's take care of business along the way. And so there's still rich opportunities in the broader market.
Tim, do you think people are more vulnerable right now, or because COVID-19 is going on, they have not really a demand for security, or they think security is not needed because we're experiencing COVID-19? Or do you think security is definitely needed right now more than ever? And I always say security is never going to go away, but do you think it's more needed more now than ever, especially throughout everything we've seen so far in the society?
One thing I've learned over time is that when the economy is doing well, the security business is good. And when the economy is doing bad, the security business tends to be better. And this has always been true until this year. And what changed this year that impacted the security business to some extent is the physical access to the customer. So when we lock down people, suddenly those variables tend to change. But I think the principle remains true that when the economy is doing well, we have security needs. Those will unfold and go on just as we would expect. And oftentimes when the economy is struggling, we have even more security needs. And so I don't think that equation has changed. I think it was just periodically or in the near term disrupted by the ability of people to physically be present to conduct the business. And we see this not only in the security industry, but take restaurants and bars and so on. I mean, there's tremendous negative effects that have happened because we locked down people. And the same thing has happened in some aspects of our business. But long term, I think we'll see our normal cadence of business return across our industry.
Yeah, great to hear. And just to Tim's point, there's a lot of different verticals that Milestone and plays Intel with. Just here in Texas, through my experience, seeing Milestone, obviously education's a big one for them. Law enforcement too, public safety. I see a lot of you guys in the public safety sector too, with some local PDs and law enforcement. And then of course, gaming, casinos, and retail is always a hot vertical for Milestone and the XProtect system. So again, guys, small scale to big scale, they play Intel with everything, and it fits towards whatever the end user demands are and needs. So Tim, kind of my final two questions, man. What's next for Milestone? What's next the coming months, coming years? What can your partners and end users expect from you guys?
Well, some themes in our product from a technology perspective, I think would be first, a lot of focus on security of the software. So whether it's cybersecurity or security functionality, we're certainly focused in that area. It's one of our top priorities. We have large global customers and all of the mid-market, and that's a super relevant component of whenever you're a software company, securing your software and building in the functionality that's needed to ensure that's not a gateway for problems is very important. So you'll see Milestone continue to fortify the security of our products over time. You also see us begin to use that word deconstruct more. We talked about it at MIPS a couple of years ago, deconstructing the VMS as we take different paths to cloud. And so for future innovation in XProtect, we'll have an eye on cloud, an eye on the understanding that just as in 2007, when I started at Milestone, there was an evolution from analog to IP. Now in 2020 and 2021, we're very much talking about the evolution from on-prem to off-prem, right? And so that will play out over time and certainly impact the way that we develop innovation, even in our on-prem products. So it has an eye on the future. And providing that multiple paths to cloud, that's another key element that you'll see from Milestone. Not believing that we should go one way with one product, but that we should open up avenues with multiple products, both from Milestone and from others, to give a path to cloud, to create options to balance on-prem with off-prem. And I think that's timely. Finally, I think the other trend that you'll see from us is more conversation around connecting into the Internet of Things, IoT, the connected devices. We talk about in video management, oftentimes the companion technology is access control. There's a lot of synergy between those two types of technologies. But if you think about access control and zoom out and consider it through the lens of IoT, it's a lot of connected devices, and it's creating a lot of events. And so managing devices and events and creating a framework around that makes sense not only for access control, but for all the new technologies that are coming into our marketplace. So those four themes I think you'll see play out in Milestone's R&D and in our forward-looking direction for sure.
Great to hear that, Tim. Exciting things to happen, and it's crazy, man. Ever since I joined the industry, 6 years ago, when my dad introduced me, he told me about the analog age to the digital IP age now, and now we're finding ourselves in this machine learning from computing to edge to off-prem resources now too. So it's just, what do the next 20 years look like, right? How are we going to evolve from them? But it's crazy, the constant improvement and development of our industry. It just constantly evolves, and it's very, very reassuring to see these new technologies, new manufacturers come out with some reassuring but working systems, not this vaporware that we've seen so often with some of these new technologies. But sitting down with guys like Tim and his team at Milestone, that's why we trust these guys, because they vet these different technologies and policies with our industry. So Tim, my last and final question, brother, is a question that I ask all my manufacturers. This is your salesman hat 101. So we're gonna pretend that you're going to an end user, you're going to a client site. We're gonna put that salesman hat on and give us our 60-second pitch of why Milestone.
All right. Thanks for the softball. Milestone, the open platform company, believing in a community of innovators to solve dynamic end user objectives that evolve over time. You should be able to have the freedom to choose your technology, and you should be able to use the technology that you've acquired over time and leverage that investment over a long, useful life. You should be able to augment that with new things. You should be able to experiment in the marketplace, and you shouldn't be locked in. And while some companies will argue for easy end-to-end, the reality is the best value prop is the freedom that you can choose from in a rich community of third-party innovators. That's where the future lies. It's where it's always been. It's true in our IT industry. It's true in the security industry, and it will continue to be true. And so choose to try out all the many options that are out in the community and marketplace, the broader marketplace that we work in and that we conduct our business in, and you will find some fantastic technology, and we will be there to support you in bringing that all together and making it productive on a day-to-day basis.
Bold statements from Tim Palmquist right there, and spoken like a true security professional. I love it, man. So Tim, for those clients and partners that want to get more information about Milestone Systems, what's that contact info look like?
Well, you should go to milestonesys.com, and you will find a lot of information there. We've talked about the marketplace link. You can always reach out to me or anyone on my team in the Americas. Feel free to do that. Love to engage anyone in a conversation.
Love to hear that, Tim. And for those that have questions, comments, or concerns, you can feel free to reach out to me at info@securityvip.net. Once again, that's info@securityvip.net. There are a couple different ways to stay connected here on the Security VIP podcast. The first way is to follow us on LinkedIn for all the latest feature announcements and VIP guests are going to be featured on this podcast series. Subscribe to us on YouTube to watch this beautiful episode of Tim and I. Or if you don't want to see our faces, you can also listen to us on Spotify.com and see us or listen to us on the road. So please feel free to stay connected here on the Security VIP podcast. Tim, thanks again, brother, for hopping on, man. And we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks, brother.